How important is sex in a relationship? Why do I feel like I suddenly don't like the way he speaks, acts, or even smells? How do I stop thinking about exes? Some tips on restoring trust in relationship. Navigating queer identities for the first time in mid-20s. Look how pregnant she is.
No,
Wait.
it's a basketball.
Oh my gosh.
It's a teenager with a basketball in his top, and he looks like a pregnant woman riding the bike.
It didn't make sense to me because, so this is probably a young boy on a bike
with this huge pregnant tummy.
It just looked like a really weird woman. We are coming from the car. We got our kombuchas. We just had lunch, so we're very full. I don't even know if you need an introduction anymore. But this is my mom. She's also a psychotherapist specializing in couple therapy. And we are going to be answering some questions that you guys sent me on Instagram. You guys sent in so many questions. We're always so grateful and blown away.
We kind of bunched them up into themes, so hopefully, even if it's not exactly your question, hopefully something there can still be helpful. Sometimes I visit the same themes and the same questions, and even for myself, it's like I hear them for the first time every time because they always meet me where I'm at.
Yes, so much of the stuff that we're covering is stuff that like multiple people asked. So I hope that maybe that can be kind of comforting to know that like these things you're going through are very common and normal.
And obviously we're not aware of the context, and please discern what feels relevant and what doesn't.
So,
yeah.
Should we start?
Yeah, let's start.
I've got a boyfriend and I'd like to know what's the main key elements to having a long-term relationship.
I think as a general framework, you really need to have two main pillars, one of commitment and one of trust. So these are like the pillars of the house. And then what you have like at the top of that structure is really the capacity to make life dreams happen, to really support each other as individuals and also create some kind of shared vision of what your vision is as a couple. So that's kind of at the top of the framework. And then in the center, you really need to be able to have difficult conversations on things that you don't necessarily agree on. So areas of conflict, because we don't agree about everything. So there needs to be some skill to be able to really land in the experience of the other person and be able to validate their experience while still staying connected to your own experience. And from that place, being able to come with creative solutions and with compromise. And also the capacity to repair, because yes, we're not going to always agree about everything and we're not going to see everything in the same way. But even when there is rupture, how do we come back together? How do we reassure and repair any hurt or anything that was caused? So that's kind of the center of the framework. And then the layers that are kind of the basic layers are really your friendship system. So really being able to be friends with each other. Part of that is really getting interested in the other person and getting updated at where the other person's at, who they are, the person. Often in a long-term relationship, we change. We're not the people we used to be. So a partner or the unit of the us is really wise to create a way of getting these updates, of getting really, really curious. What are you into? What's your vision? What's your intention? What's your dream? What's important to you now as who you are today? And in addition, within that framework, friendship framework, we also have a really important notion of turning towards the other person rather than away. So being really attuned to bids of connections. And people bid for connection in different ways, but it's that capacity to look the other person in the eye, to give that compliment, to touch, to lean towards them rather than away. So these signals to our brain that we're connected, that we're safe, that someone cares, especially in today's world where we can so easily, just scroll or check out or dissociate, and we can end up feeling really, really lonely even with another person with us.
Completely.
So really having that awareness to constantly
notice it and
nurturing connection, not taking it for granted.
How do I stop thinking about exes? I don't want them back, but the thoughts do not stop.
Yeah. I think we can all relate.
Oh my god, I mean, I know I can relate, and like talking to so many of my girlfriends, it's such a funny thing, like exes, because like you said, like even if you really don't want to be with them or you have done all the healing and stuff, it's like they were such a big part of your life, and you often like connect quite deeply, and like they will in a way stay in that subconscious. And the subconscious has a really weird way of like bringing things up. The thing that has helped is more just like accepting it and being like, yeah, like you're gonna be in my subconscious and my thoughts, and not shove it down. I feel like when you try to shove it down or feel bad for thinking about them, then it kind of like makes it worse. Whereas if you can kind of just be like, like, hey,
what you resist persists.
Exactly.
Like there's something about actually just allowing that thought to move and move through you. You not feed it, but you don't need to suppress it. So really normalizing that, because it's such a familiar experience for everyone. Someone that really you let in, and they really influenced you and became part of you. And I am a big believer that relationships never really end.
No.
They only morph and change forms. You still have a relationship with someone in your mind, even when you separate, even if someone passes away, they still exist inside of you. So I guess on that level, when that thought comes, even if it feels intrusive, it's in a way, what are you going to meet that thought with? And I really like just simply praying for someone's happiness. Like, I just wish for your happiness. And you just release that. You just say, oh, hello, you popped into my mind, I wish you well. And
which is really helpful as well when you don't necessarily, like if it didn't end well, or you have like kind of
unresolved
hurt, or like they pop into your mind and it's like annoying and upsetting or frustrating. I think that is such a beautiful way of doing it, where it's actually so hard to do, but just to really like genuinely find that love in yourself and be like, I wish the best for you. And it just like is such a freeing thing to be like, you know what, I actually don't.
You're actually not doing it for them. You're doing it for you. You're creating space there for you. And I guess there's also a part of us that doesn't want to let go, and that stays connected. But I think the just wishing the best is really such a great muscle to develop, and no one needs to know, and you're developing it between you and you, and just to experience how freeing that is, and how empowering that is, and how it actually rises your frequency, and then you're able to attract, the next thing that's actually you're available for, because you're created space and you're not actually holding on to something.
Is love a choice / commitment to someone rather than people being a good or bad match?
I think it's $1 million question.
It is.
It's both and. My husband is a goldsmith, so he sees many couples when they make their wedding rings. And then I'm a couple therapist. I see them a few years down the line. And I think that really sums it up. You know, he sees them often when in that stage where it's the, you know, the right person, the one and only,
so much
that
love.
kind of the love and
The
the
honeymoon.
and really important, lovely stage. And I often see them a few years down the line when it is apparent that there is a part of love that is a doing, that is a verb, that is a choice. And that choice is continuous. You choose to show up again and again, and you choose to love, and you choose to assume the best about the intentions of the other person, and you choose to grow, and you choose to care.
I think something that I've realized a lot from your work and talking to people that have been in long relationships, it is that thing of like, if it wasn't with that person, it would, you'd still have to do that same work.
Yeah.
It's just choosing who to do that work with, and that's something I love thinking about when like stepping into any sort of relationship or whatever. It's like, you know, you can't know straight away often, but like, you know, as you get to know each other more and it gets more serious, it's like can I see myself doing the work with this person? Like, do I actually want to do the work with this person?
That's such a good way, you know, to see it.
Yeah, so I think there is like a choosing and the right person, but I also think it's like you said, it's like Dad sees these really like relationships at the beginning where it's like then you get to see them when they're like really like we're choosing to put in the work because we love each other.
Exactly, because we care so much. You know, we use the words, you know, do the work a lot. And I think where people get it wrong often is that you think that doing the work is it's a doing, it's a something that we do externally, but a lot of the work actually is actually in our own head. You know, what do we tell ourselves about our partner? That influences so much of the way we perceive reality and the way we react to it. So a lot of the work is actually between us and ourselves, and often many of us don't have real role models to how that really looks like in action. We know our parents often default into very kind of habitual ways of relating, sometimes very volatile and sometimes very distant. And easily we can fall into those patterns just because they feel so familiar and we actually don't know how to do different. So there's something about doing the work, and what you're saying, you know, that you take it into your next relationship too, is like you do it not only for the other person but for your own growth.
Completely. Okay, before moving on to the next question, this is actually a great time to thank the sponsor of this video, which is Kittl. You guys know I've worked with Kittl before. I feel like a lot of you guys could probably relate to being a creator that has all these ideas and motivation for digital products, but it's often hard and overwhelming when you don't know where to start. I think the challenge lies in understanding what types of products to create, how to design them. These things all take so much time, and when you're working for yourself, time is so precious, which is why Kittl's extensive library of pre-made templates is so helpful because you save so much time. They also offer elements, photos, textures, and fonts built into the advanced editor, enabling creators to produce high-quality digital products that can resonate with whatever audience they are trying to target. You can now try Kittl for free using the link in my description, and thank you again, Kittl, for sponsoring this video. Why do I feel like I suddenly don't like the way he speaks, acts, or even smells?
Yeah, I mean, I know that one for myself. I used to have that with my dad. Like, I'd hear him chew and it was just like, it would magnify in my brain and become unbearable.
I think siblings you have that a lot with as well.
Yeah.
But it is interesting when you put it in a romantic way where it was like suddenly it was all fine and then suddenly you're like,
everything triggers you.
Everything becomes like an ick and like annoying and like you're like, yeah.
I think it's connected to the question we just answered about choosing love. And yeah, we're gonna be triggered and we're gonna be annoyed, and then what do we do with this information? Do we feed it? Do we let it grow? Or do we manage it? And part of it would be if there's anything that needs an adjustment, and tracking, why is that so triggering for me? Where is it coming from? What is it actually, what's underneath? Often I think it's so easy to project on someone else, especially someone that's close to us and that we feel safe with. We need to be pretty responsible about those parts of ourselves. They're not always our allies and our friends, and sometimes it's a part of ourself that we respectfully need to kind of put in the back seat, because we can become very hurtful and actually create a lot of damage.
I've definitely had it, before a breakup, where sometimes your body does send you signals before you even realize it, that the relationship isn't it. But then there's also, this huge thing now that is kind of like, it sounds like you're almost talking about like the ick. Like people talk about the ick nowadays. It's like the modern kind of where you start seeing someone or you're with someone, suddenly they do something that you're just like, I have an ick. And I think there's something about our generation that maybe with dating apps and just the internet, my god, we can like fixate on these icks and then be like, ew, no, I cannot live with that.
I think, discuss, or what you call the ick, is it gives us a lot of information. Some of the information is about the other person, and some of the information is actually about ourselves. And I think the trick is to dig deeper and to stay really kind. And kind to yourself as well. If your body is giving you signals that you need to actually address or confront, if it's a smell, if you have a request there, if it's a trigger to a previous trauma, then that's something that you need to be kind towards yourself and attend to. You don't actually need to override that. The magic about long-term relationships is that you actually get to experience how things change. And one day you feel one thing, and then you realize the week after that's completely gone, and you're like, where did that go? And then you start to accumulate this wisdom about life, and is that nothing ever stays frozen. And you get a little bit more relaxed, and you get a little bit more perspective, and you allow some things to move through and not identify, with any cloud that passes.
The camera keeps dying on us. Advice on getting back into dating with an avoidant, anxious attachment style.
So, I know attachment styles are very popular and trendy and are cycling around. And I think also a little misunderstood and simplified. Yes, I do think we do have ways of behaving in relationships. And often we come to our relationships with certain understandings about connection, about safety, and some people are feeling safer while distant, and some people are feeling safer while connecting. And interestingly enough, often we're attracted to exact opposite. And there's the question, why? And
why are we making it so hard for us?
I know, why are we choosing such a painful dance? And it is often a dance, that couples dance throughout their relationship that often is never completely resolved. We just get better at it, and we just get more insight both about ourselves and about the other person. When you're managing a partner with an avoidant tendency, I think what usually happens is that the more they're avoidant, the more you pursue them. And then the more you pursue them, the more they're avoidant. So I guess that dance, it's enough for one person to change the steps of the dance for the whole dance to change. So if you found yourself like that, you're more the pursuer, and you just practice holding still, which is so hard, and really look at how do I manage my own freak out? How do I resource myself? What do I need in order to come back to regulation? And just really allow yourself to hold still allowing a little bit more space for the avoidant partner not to go further away. I think what's really important for the pursuer to understand about the avoidant partner is that often they're not doing it because of bad intentions. It's actually their nervous system reaching a point of overwhelm where they have to retreat in order to come back to regulation. So it's really important for the pursuing partner to respect and understand that. But where people get this wrong often is that, with all due respect to the avoidant partner that is feeling overwhelmed, and often rightfully so in terms of their experience, it is their responsibility to come back to the conversation. So it's their responsibility to say to the pursuing partner, I'm pretty overwhelmed at the moment, but you are important to me, and this is important to me, and can we talk about it later, after I do 10 push-ups or go for a surf or meditate or have a good night's sleep or whatever that is for that person. So you can't just, as the avoidant partner, you can't just leave and never return. It's okay for you to ask for a break so you can come back to regulation, but then it's your responsibility to come back into the conversation. So if a couple can just figure that out, and both need to understand themselves, to resource themselves, and also to have that commitment, yes, to maintain connection.
Like, I do end up often being the one that feels very like I'm pursuing that person sometimes, and I feel like I've learnt over time, if I send that text, like, I can leave it. That I feel like the text is such an easy way to put that kind of dynamic of being the pursuer.
So you're managing your own anxiety with tools that you're gaining.
And also just being able to make room for them to show up, because if you're doing all the work, you're not actually giving them time to show up, and if they don't show up, then that's probably a clear message that you do not want to be with them. You know, like, it does need to be both people on board. So sometimes you need to leave a little bit of extra room, but if you're so scared that if you don't fill that void that they won't be there, you need to test that theory. If they don't actually show up, then
believe them.
Believe them. Like, they're just not there.
They're not gonna show up.
How to stop my mind getting negative when partner is depressed, but I want to still be there? Yeah,
that is a very, very beautiful question, and it comes with so much heart. I want to be there for the other person, but then I need to take care of myself. Are you okay?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. And I think it does come to that really fine balance between having our boundaries intact and also having our heart open. Without a shadow of a doubt, your intentions, the goodness of your heart, how much you care and how much you love. And now you ask yourself, what am I willing to give? What do I want to give? And then you decide on the rhythm, you decide on the what, on the when, on the how, and then you do that. They say on a plane, put the mask on yourself first, and then you can take care of someone else. You have to make sure that you're resourced enough in order to be helpful for the other person.
Yeah.
It's not easy to have someone close to you that you love going through something so challenging and so difficult. Yeah. And you can't always fix it, and you can't rush it. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. So you just support yourself as much as possible.
How important is sex in a relationship?
Sex in a relationship it's really interesting, because it's such a great question. You can answer it from so many different lenses. Exactly. So, and I guess it's really comes down to, how do you define sex? Is sex like what we conventionally consider sex, like very genital, kind of heterosexual, in and out? Is that sex? Or is sex actually a state of mind? Is it what does sex mean to you? I think that's also a very personal question. For some people, it occupies a big part of what's important to them. For other people, it feels more in the periphery. As a rule, we can live without sex. We can't really live without touch. And I think the conversation about sex is a bit missing the point. I think the conversation needs to be more about pleasure rather than sex. And pleasure can look and show up for different people in different ways at different times of their life. And then there is a little bit less pressure on the performative aspect that can often show up for people, or the pursuit of climax, which is also not fitting for everyone at every moment.
Touch, pleasure, intimacy, like those things are important, but there's so many ways to get there.
Yeah, figuring out what that looks like for you.
Yeah.
And, you know, and work with so many couples, and of course that's part of what shows up in the room. And I really realized we're all so quirky. And, you know, it's like, it's such a beautiful journey for a couple to just really land at what sex looks like for them. And it's pretty unique, and it often doesn't look like at all like what we see on TV.
Some tips on restoring trust in relationship.
My eyes might be moving because I'm following this car.
We're in a car park.
We're in a car. It looks like someone's like
doing loopies.
What are they doing?
I have no idea. Maybe
Practicing
she's learning.
driving.
Oh, probably manual driving.
Yeah, something like that. They're literally going in loops.
Oh no, she's leaving. She's going on the road.
Yay! Good luck. Okay. So trust. Oh no, here she goes again.
Sorry, someone's learning to drive in front of us.
Restoring trust, I think it is a combination of a sincere apology. The active partner actually can identify the part that they played and the effect that it had on the other person, even if it meant something completely different for them. So rather than being defensive, them actually being to really recognize that their actions had a certain influence, and that influence that it had on the hurt partner is valid. So that is all part of a sincere apology. But then rebuilding trust is really not something that we can do cognitively. It accumulates through our nervous system. So rebuilding trust takes time. It's important to understand that, the rupture of trust is often very, very traumatic, and it will take time and effort to restore it. And there's something about recognizing that it's not a quick fix, and that things can still show up as a trigger, and allowing for that to be part of the conversation and not needing to kind of not talk about it anymore, that actually helps rebuilding trust. If your partner gets triggered by something and you can see it coming, and rather than like rolling your eyes or enough already, can't you forgive me, it's like, yeah, that makes sense that will trigger you, but that happened then, it's not happening now, I'm here now. So there's a bit of an art there for rebuilding trust, and it is a process.
It's like both people need to be ready to
on board
do that,
yes.
To really I want to forgive you, and I want
to forgive you, and I want to be there for the process of you actually being able to fully forgive. Yes.
Navigating queer identities for the first time in mid-20s.
Yes, beautiful question. Very, very important, because it is also very important to maybe even flag that we're talking about relationships. We're not assuming that they're all heterosexual.
Heterosexual,
yeah. There's something about identity and coming out, even to yourself about your identity. That moment in time is very, very significant. When you come out to yourself or come out to the people around you, really making sure that you are supported asking yourself, who are my allies? Realizing as a queer person that you're part of a marginalized identity, and that comes with its own baggage, but also with its own gifts. And I guess finding a combination of people that inspire you, that role model something about your identity that you can benefit from, taking it slow, being kind to yourself, and lots of things can show up in relation to that may seem on the surface as if they are not connected, but they all actually are. So, it can be grief, it can be trauma. There are lots of aspects to coming out and really identifying as queer in your mid-20s. Awesome moment to say goodbye.
Yeah, cheers.
It was really fun.
Oh wow, you've really finished yours.
Finished this. I'm high on kombucha.
If you guys watched my last video, you guys know that I have decided to work on the newsletter, which I will leave the sign up for below. I'm super excited to have this community. Dad's calling. I'm super excited to have this community off socials as well. So yeah, so much exciting things in the works. So definitely, if you want to join, you guys are the first to know about the newsletter. Yeah, anything else to add, Mama Dearest? Thanks for being on the channel again.
It was really lots of fun, and I love you all, and I'm gonna miss you in Melbourne.
Anyway,
I'll come visit.
Yeah, you have to. Love you guys.
See you guys.